Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. During the presentation, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone, unmute your line, and record your name when prompted. Your name must be recorded in order for your question to be introduced. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the call over to Mr. Leland Milstein. Sir, you may begin.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. This is the third Thursday webcast series. It's a bi-monthly webcast held at the lunch hour. The trainings leverage local successes by amplifying to a larger audience two model organizations' methods, materials, and approaches. Sessions are planned to last no more than 1 hour, with two presenters speaking on the same topic from slightly different perspectives in minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers. This session is approved by the ISA for 1 CEU hour and by SAF for 1 CFE Category 2. If you haven't already given me your certification number for either of those, for either ISA or SAF, please email me after the session. Also, state landscape architecture boards require only a certificate of participation, which we can also provide to anyone who requests one. So also email me after this if you need one of those. This is a program of the Alliance for Community Trees. If you're not a member already, I hope you will consider joining us. We are a premier group of tree planting nonprofits and municipalities all across the country, and we put on twice a month. I want to thank our sponsors, Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service, for making this series possible. And today I want to thank our two presenters, Brenda Smith and Jason Schmidt. Today's session is Climate Change Impacts, Water and Rain Harvesting. Rainwater harvesting is the capture, diversion, and storage of rainwater for a number of purposes, from landscape irrigation and stormwater abatement to drinking and domestic use. Rainwater harvesting can be as simple as diverting rain runoff to planted landscape areas across a contoured landscape, or to rain barrels or cisterns from gutters and downspouts. The practicality of rainwater harvesting can be applied to small residential projects as well as large facilities, such as parking lots, parks, and commercial or industrial buildings. These strategies can help solve a variety of pressing water concerns about stormwater runoff, pollution, potability, river diversion, and energy consumption. Its potential is especially attractive in helping to mitigate impacts on the environment and climate in places like California, where pumping water is the #1 use of electricity. And here to tell us a little bit more about that is our first presenter, Jason Schmidt, who is a recent Pacific Northwest transplant to Southern California and brings several years of watershed management experience to Tree People's Natural Urban Systems Group. After working on salmon habitat restoration in the rivers of the Northwest, Jason now works on urban rivers, actual roads and right-of-ways that serve as the natural drainage systems in the heavily impermeable area of Los Angeles. Jason is passionate about watersheds and sees his work in rainwater harvesting and stormwater management as critical to restoring the watershed and ecological functions of the Los Angeles River Basin. He also sits on the City of Los Angeles' Low Impact Development Technical Assistance Committee, which is currently writing the city's LID handbook for homeowners and developers. Thanks for being with us today, Jason.
Thank you. All right. Well, good morning to the West Coasters and good afternoon to the East Coasters. Again, I'm Jason Schmidt from Tree People. We're a Los Angeles-based nonprofit that specializes in community organizing and environmental organizing as well. Our mission is to inspire, engage, and support people to take personal responsibility for the urban environment, and in that way to make it safe, healthy, and fun, and sustainable. And the work that we do, we share our results as a model for the world. More specifically, my department, the Natural Urban Systems Group, works primarily with public agencies to encourage integrated management structures that lead to multi-benefit projects. and our work focuses on water policy, stormwater management, and rainwater harvesting. So today I'll offer you a brief glimpse into what these multi-benefit projects look like and explain how rainwater harvesting and urban forestry play critical roles in making our communities more resilient to climate change. So a little bit about California and the water supply. The state depends on the San Joaquin and Sacramento River deltas in the center part of the state for most of its water supply. Roughly 75% of the total precipitation that falls in the state of California is north of the state's capital, Sacramento. And this is the most significant source of fresh water for the entire state. So given the current climate change projections, the Sierra snowpack is projected to be reduced by 70 to 90% in the next 100 years. Much of this is due to, as temperatures rise, what would normally fall as snow is instead falling as rain in the mountains. And the consequences to California's water supply would be, to put it lightly, quite tragic. And Southern California's thirst in the summertime would not be quenched by this disappearing snowpack. So a little bit about how Los Angeles gets its own water supply. We import 87% of our water from distant sources as far as 444 miles. So increasingly, Los Angeles relies on the State Water Project and the Colorado River Aqueduct rather than its historic Los Angeles Aqueduct, which was famously designed and constructed by William Mulholland. And this is due to a number of reasons, from lower snowpack levels and the environmental water needs in the Owens Valley. But to move and treat and deliver that water across the state, California expends nearly 20% of its electrical use in pumping that water. And in fact, the State Water Project, also known as the California Aqueduct, is the single largest consumer of electricity in the state. So according to California Energy Commission, simply conveying the state's water supply consumes 7% of that electricity. So here in Southern California, as we're the farthest from the sources of water, we also are the largest consumer of the embedded energy in pumping that water. So within this study, the Energy Commission summarized a bunch of the efficacy of urban water conservation programs on reducing energy. And there is a connection between lowering water use and savings on energy. So these programs include things like plumbing retrofits and actually metering and watching water use. There's still actually parts of California that are not metered. Things like efficient washing machines, landscape conversions. And their study finds that efficiency programs are very effective at reducing energy use at home. In fact, these water savings, if the energy savings were half as much and the program costs were twice as much, water use efficiency would still be as cost effective as energy efficiency programs. However, within the study, it does not include the benefits of rainwater harvesting. So they were just looking at indoor and outdoor water efficiency. So at Tree People, we demonstrate that you can use rainwater as a resource. And a recent report from the Natural Resources Defense Council came out with some interesting numbers in implementing low-impact development and rainwater harvesting. So what they found and concluded was rainwater harvesting, which includes the infiltration of water into the ground, as well as capture in rain barrels or cisterns for later use on site at both new and redeveloped residential and commercial properties in the urbanized areas of Southern California and some portions of the San Francisco Bay Area actually have the potential to increase local water supplies up to 405,000 acre-feet by 2030. So the current Los Angeles water demand is 554,000 acre-feet. So in combination with landscape transformation, swapping out our thirsty lawns with native and drought-tolerant plants could really amount to a significant reduction in the need to convey water from long distances across the state. And through the city's, though the city's needs would require us to continue importing water, lid and rainwater harvesting would allow us to recharge our local aquifers for future supplies, and thus reducing our energy consumption at the same time. So our Center for Community Forestry, which is located in the Santa Monica Mountains, showcases a lot of these principles. We have a 216,000-gallon cistern that receives rainwater from our entire hardscape footprint, and our park is planted with native and drought-tolerant plants, which reduces our own on-site water needs. We also use drip irrigation throughout the park, and our watershed education garden provides examples of what people can do at their own home to harvest the rain where it falls and reuse it. And I also mentioned that our facility is a public park, so if you are in Southern California or find yourself here at some point, you're more than welcome to come by and visit us. So it does rain in Southern California. And when it does rain, what Tree People is doing is demonstrating that we can use this rainwater as a resource by capturing it on site, storing it for later use, and infiltrating it back into the ground to recharge our local groundwater supplies. Now, the old way of doing things is to rush water off your site into the street, down to a catch basin, out to the storm drain, out to the river, and then to the ocean as fast as possible. So, and this is an image of the Los Angeles River, actually the confluence of the Los Angeles River and the Tujunga Wash. And it's really breathtaking during a storm event when you stand next to the LA River and witness the immense power of water and how much of that is just being rushed away and not sunk back into the ground or stored for later reuse. So over the years, we've completed several demonstration sites that show how we can integrate our resource management and produce multi-beneficial projects that reduce our energy demands by cooling and shading buildings, reusing rainwater on site for outdoor irrigation needs, and also recharging our local groundwater. And furthermore, also reducing our the flooding problems that we experience during the rainy season by retaining water on site. So our first demonstration project is the Hall House, which was completed in 1998. And this project is a retrofit of an existing house in a low-income area of Los Angeles. And through the retrofit, this home successfully captures all of the rainfall from the majority of storms that pass through Los Angeles, up to the 100-year storm event. And at the end of this presentation, I'll provide you a link with a more detailed report on this project. But the ultimate goals were to capture all the rain from a 100-year storm event, demonstrate how homes can help provide flood prevention, and minimize the solid waste stream by reducing green waste on site and reusing it as mulch. One of the aspects of that is the installation of a cistern, which is made up of two different tanks with the total capacity of 3,600 gallons. And we use the water on site for irrigation. Another aspect is the dry well and trench drain. So the runoff leaving, or the runoff from the driveway is captured before it enters into the street and diverted into the dry well for groundwater recharge. And downspouts have been diverted into swale areas and bermed retention basins. And so here's a little image of the burned lawn, and this is how the property itself is able to hold that 100-year storm on site. Now, given that this was done in the mid-90s, nearly 12 years ago, there's definitely a different landscape ethic in Southern California. And currently, I'm managing the reimagining of the Hall House to better reflect many of these changes in the landscape ethic and to bring it up to speed with a lot of the developments in low impact development and sustainability. So the ideas that we've implemented at the Hall House and at our facilities, the Center for Community Forestry, are far from new. And in fact, the trees themselves serve as an example that we followed when embarking on rainwater harvesting and stormwater management. Trees are the original rainwater harvesting technology. There was a paper published by the Center for Urban Forestry, or Urban Forest Research, which is based out of University of California, Davis, studied the interception of rainfall by street and park trees in Santa Monica. And they found that rainfall interception ranged from 15 to nearly 66%, depending on the species of tree, its age, and the size of the canopy. So during these storm events, trees really serve as a great mitigator of stormwater management. So how does climate change, rainwater harvesting, and urban forestry all connected? Well, in Los Angeles, the average tree canopy is about 20%. However, some areas of the city that has a canopy of less than 10%, and these areas are directly correlated with the highest percentage of impervious surfaces. So the areas with the lowest canopy has an impervious surface area of nearly 80%. And is that a surprise or what? Well, not really a surprise, but urban forestry in combination with low impact development within these highly impervious areas will amount to more infiltration of rainwater and less runoff and pollution into the LA River and out to the Pacific Ocean. It also helps to lower the heat island effect and reduces our energy costs for heating and cooling of buildings, and ultimately can offset some of the results of global climate change. So the key is to create a city that is resilient in the face of climate change, that can not only reduce our carbon footprint, but make the city more adaptable to the changing frequency and intensity of storms. One of the most current demonstration projects that Tree People was involved with is the Elmer Avenue retrofit. And this was managed by the Los Angeles and San Gabriel Rivers Watershed Council, and is the culmination of a 10-year research study entitled the Water Augmentation Study. And this research sought to inform agencies and policymakers about the possibility of redirecting stormwater from our streets into areas where it can be infiltrated and used to recharge local groundwater supplies. And in Southern California, our groundwater supplies are often under-replenished, and there's been a lot of movement to replenish these aquifers with recycled water. However, using stormwater is another viable option. So Elmer Avenue previously had no stormwater infrastructure or public amenities like curbs, gutters, sidewalks, even catch basins. And this area of Los Angeles is also notorious for flooding due to the fact that there is no stormwater infrastructure. So in less than a half an inch of rain, these properties would be inundated. The streets would literally turn into rivers and keep people from going about their daily activities. So this project retrofitted an entire residential block in the northeast San Fernando Valley to capture and infiltrate stormwater from 40 acres upstream. And the street now has the potential to recharge 16 acre-feet of groundwater each year, or the amount of, that's also equivalent to the amount of water that's used by 100 people in a year. So in essence, the neighborhood itself it's contributing more water to the community than it uses. This is an image of the underground infiltration trench, which is actually underneath the street. And actually these were animated. There's a bunch of photos that show the different developments that we did there. But essentially, you know, we put in the stormwater infrastructure that was necessary to recharge our groundwater. And what it also takes is community participation. So we've actively worked with the residents to help design and come up with landscape improvements on their own properties, which include taking out turf, putting in permeable surfaces with pavers, installing rain barrels, having dry creek style swales to handle the overflow of rain barrels, and the parkway of the street now intercepts any runoff that travels down the street. About half of the private property owners underwent these landscape transformations and reduced their impermeable surfaces. So now Elmer Avenue does not contribute to the urban runoff that would normally flow downstream into the Los Angeles River and out to the ocean. So that's briefly a little glimpse into what the work we're doing at Tree People in stormwater management, and here's a list of resources that everyone can check out. And if you have any questions in the future, you can feel free to contact me by phone or email.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Excellent presentation. And what we're going to do is open it up now to questions. So, Rosie, if you could tell everyone how to do that, please.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone. You will be prompted to record your name. To withdraw your question, please press *2. Once again, if you would like to ask a question, please unmute your phone, press *1, and record your name when prompted.
Thanks. And while we're waiting for people to do that, I want to remind everyone that you can also ask your question online. If you don't want to do it over the phone, there's that Q&A tab at the top of your screen, and you can just type in your question there, and I will read it over the phone. People are thinking up their questions and logging in. I just wanted to start with a question from someone here in our office for you, Jason, which is, is there a best place to plant a tree for helping to reduce stormwater? Is it sort of at the bottom of a slope? Is that generally a good area?
Well, there's, it depends on the species of tree. And what we say at Tree People is that you have to plant the right tree in the right place. So in terms of stormwater capture, trees definitely take a while to develop their canopy. But in essence, street trees are probably the best opportunity that we have to reduce stormwater runoff by intercepting the rainfall that would normally be hitting the streets. So street trees, I believe, serve as the best example for rainwater harvesting.
Great. And let me just ask you another question, sort of to get right to the point about numbers. I think the retrofits that you described at Hall House and on Elmer Avenue are really impressive. How much would something like that cost for, say, at the house? To install all the kinds of things that you did so that, like you said, it's capturing more rainwater than its water use.
Right. Well, the cost at the Hall House it's slightly skewed because the cistern that we're using there is a one-off prototype cistern. So that definitely offset the ultimate cost of the project. But as times have changed and cistern suppliers have become more available, buying a 3,600-gallon cistern would run you, a couple $1,000s. But the offsetting of the importation of water over the long term makes it more economically feasible.
Great. Do we have any questions on the line? Rosie?
One moment. There are no questions at this time.
Okay, great. Well, I have more, so that's good. Speaking of making things economically feasible and the long-term benefits of this, Jason, maybe you could tell me a little bit about how you and your team have worked to educate and convince either local utilities or governments or even housing developers that these solutions are worthwhile and worth the cost.
Sure. Well, for example, on the Elmer Avenue retrofit, we were able to get multiple city agencies together to cost share that whole redevelopment. So that meant utilities coming in and moving their utility lines from gas lines to water mains, and cost sharing that with the Bureau of Street Services, who backfilled everything in and repaved the street. And so by sharing between these, seemingly disparate agencies, they're actually able to save a lot of money in the long run. Also, the EPA has released a number of reports that low-impact development actually is a lot more cost-effective than traditional big pipe projects, and those studies are available on the EPA website.
Okay, great. And then I guess one final question, and we will move on, is for people who want to analyze the effects of rain harvesting or runoff in their communities, do you have any suggestions about how they go about doing that?
Well, go outside when it rains, and it's very easy to map your property when you are witnessing a storm event on your own house. The best way is to actually when it's raining, go out there and find out where the water goes and where it stands, where it's infiltrating, and you can develop a new plan for handling stormwater on your own property. And that's what we did with the residents on Elmer Avenue. We actually went out with them and mapped their properties to analyze how the hydrology of their landscape.
Great. And then one question from online: how do you maintain water quality, i.e., keep water from going stagnant or remove sediment or pollutants in the cisterns? Is this considered gray water? And did LA need to pass new laws that allow gray water use?
Well, in terms of the difference between gray water and rainwater, gray water is actually the potable supply that you can reuse from, say, your shower, bathroom sinks, laundry machines, basically anything except for your kitchen sink, because there may be too many greases in that water. So the difference is that gray water is potable supply that would normally go to your sewer system, but you're reusing it by diverting it from the sewer system. Rainwater is the water that you can collect from impermeable surfaces such as your rooftop, driveways, and parking lots. And there are developing standards of water quality for reuse in cisterns, for rainwater reuse in cisterns, and oftentimes you do pre-treatment. And one of those first pre-treatment devices is called the first flush. So during your first rain event, whatever is coming off of your roof will be diverted into a first flush unit, and then once that's full, it's then diverted into your cistern for later reuse to guarantee that whatever sediments and debris are on your roof are not going into the cistern. So we do a lot of pre-treatment to remove sediments and debris before we reuse our cistern water.
Great. And I guess, Rosie, do we have any questions on the line?
No, sir. Pardon me. No, sir, not at this time.
Great. Well, I'm sure people will get more as we move on and listen to our next presenter for the afternoon. Up next is Brenda Smith, who joined the 9 Mile Run Watershed Association as Executive Director in January 2008. Over the prior 2 decades, she helped nonprofit groups as diverse as humanitarian aid organizations and arts ensembles with strategic planning, board development, fundraising, and administrative challenges. After graduating from the University of Pittsburgh, Brenda traveled around the world 4 times working on the university's Semester at Sea program. In 1989, she co-founded Global Links, a nonprofit organization that provides hospitals with an environmentally responsible alternative to disposal or incineration of surplus equipment and supplies. Currently, Brenda co-chairs the Green Infrastructure Network's Pilot Project Subcommittee, and she has also recently participated in the Source Water Protection Technical Assistance Program for the Pennsylvania American Water Company in cooperation with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. 9 Mile Run Watershed Association is also part of a coalition working to pass legislation in the city of Pittsburgh that will require publicly funded development to meet a higher standard for managing stormwater on site through the use of green infrastructure. Thanks for being with us today, Brenda.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Okay. So I will go on to that first slide that was up there first. And I'll start by telling you a little bit about our watershed. The 9 Mile Run watershed is a small urban watershed. It's only 7 square miles. We always think that we have a large percentage of impervious surface, although compared to Los Angeles, probably not so bad. But one of the things that you can't see real well on this map, but I can try and describe to you, is that a great deal of the 9 Mile Run stream is actually underground in culverts, which is common for most urban streams. In fact, what's unusual is that about 2 miles of it is actually open, and that's because it runs through Frick Park, one of the 4 great parks of Pittsburgh, and for that reason, that portion of it was never put into a culvert. So the portion on this map in the brighter blue color running down to meet the Monongahela River passes through Frick Park, and actually that last section of the stream, the land on either side of it has now been annexed to Frick Park and enlarged the park area. So that open portion was actually the site of the largest urban stream restoration that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has done anywhere in the United States. They did this aquatic ecosystem restoration between 2003 and 2006. Our organization, the Watershed Association, was formed in 2001 when the planning for that restoration was already underway, and it was clear that in order to achieve improvements in water quality, it would be important to do work in the upper watershed and to mobilize citizens and get them involved, that just doing the physical transformation of the stream alone would not be enough to achieve what they were after. So the mission statement of our organization is to ensure the restoration and protection of the 9 Mile Run watershed through citizen engagement, demonstration projects, and advocacy. And the one activity we perform that's kind of a crucial activity that ties all of those together is monitoring. We monitor the stream for water quality, the restoration habitat area to keep track of what species of plants and animals are present. We do street tree inventories. We've done street tree inventories of the entire watershed twice, 4 years ago and again this year. So basically in any program that we undertake, we consider monitoring to be a key component. So with the exception of Frick Park, there's a lot of impervious surface in the watershed, everything that you see in red here on this map. is impervious. And so it's no surprise that our stream is plagued by the issues that are directly attributable to the urban nature of the watershed. The land area acts as a giant funnel directing stormwater runoff into the stream. The three main watershed communities, Wilkinsburg, Edgewood, and Swissvale, all have separate sanitary and storm sewers. And all of the storm sewers throughout that main part of the watershed feed directly into the underground culverts that contain 9 Mile Run. So the dotted lines on that map are 9 Mile Run and its tributaries, and all of the storm sewers from all of the streets in the watershed feed into those underground culverts. So you can imagine it doesn't take long after it starts to rain before 9 Mile Run becomes kind of a raging torrent. Also, in the small portion of the watershed, the city of Pittsburgh that has combined sewers, in other words, one set of pipes for both sanitary sewage and storm water, there are a couple of points where those sewers overflow into 9 Mile Run during rainstorms. So whenever we receive more than a quarter inch of rain, and sometimes with even less than that, depending how quickly the rain is falling, the sewers will overflow into 9 Mile Run. A couple of these sewer overflows were eliminated at the time of the stream restoration, but not all of them, so we do still have a problem with that. So the problems afflicting the stream are typical of most urban streams: great fluctuations in flow, high volume of stormwater runoff, bringing pollution and trash into the stream with every storm, including the ubiquitous plastic bag, the bane of everyone's existence, plus sewer overflows. Still, the physical restoration of the stream achieved considerable success by building meanders and pool and riffle sequences. The Corps was successful in creating a floodplain and habitat and making the stream much more attractive. In fact, it's so attractive that now people frequently are seen walking barefoot in it and letting their dogs drink from it, which is really not safe because, unfortunately, the bacteria levels, even in dry weather, are still above safe levels, which we know from our monitoring. So we do try to inform people about that. But anyway, the success in making the stream more attractive was very helpful in motivating people to want to get involved in taking the actions that are necessary in the upper watershed to help improve water quality. And we've worked to educate people that the most effective thing that individual residents can do to help reduce the amount to reduce the problems in the stream is to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff. It would help to reduce sewer overflows, non-point source pollution, and the destruction of habitat caused by extreme fluctuations in flow. The Rain Barrel Initiative was the first really big program undertaken by the 9 Mile Run Watershed Association. It had two main goals. First, to achieve a measurable reduction in stormwater runoff into 9 Mile Run, and second, to engage residents of the watershed directly in stormwater management and environmental restoration. So phase one of the Rain Barrel Initiative took place in 2004, and then there were two rounds of evaluation in 2005 and 2006. I'm just seeing that this slide doesn't look the way here that I expected it to, so sorry about that. In phase one, we installed 500 barrels on watershed homes using the River Safe barrel, which we purchased from a Canadian company. By the time we designed the more in-depth user survey in 2006, we knew we were going after larger scale funding for a second phase of the program, and we wanted to be sure we understood what was happening with the barrels that were already installed, the 500 that we installed in 2004. So from that more in-depth user survey, we learned a number of things, and also from just talking with various people, members of the association who had rain barrels. And among those were that people were not necessarily maintaining their barrels, and that was in part because the River Safe barrel does not have a removable lid. It only has a very small opening, so it's difficult to clean the barrel. Also, the way that the barrels were distributed in the first phase, we literally had a group of people driving around with a truck with barrels on the truck, going door to door, trying to convince people to take a rain barrel. And so a number of what we call kind soul participants took the barrels to help, but actually ended up not really using them, we discovered later in going back and doing field checks and doing the user survey. So we thought a lot about how to try to ensure that people who had a barrel would actually use it. And one of the things that we ended up deciding for phase 2 was to charge for the barrel, to charge some amount for it. We ended up with a $100 fee in the watershed, which doesn't cover all of the costs, but it helps people to feel more invested in actually using the barrel. Also, that there wasn't a lot of ongoing contact with the participants in phase 1. We had additional staff during the summer when the barrels were being installed, but after that, there wasn't really the capacity on staff to have that ongoing contact. So we felt it was very important for the next phase to try to have a staff person dedicated to education and outreach. And also there had been installation problems, and so we felt that we needed to do more with the assessment process before doing installations. And again, that had something to do with the fact that we were doing them sort of instantaneous installations, and we decided that was not the right way to go. And then also, in addition to the ones listed here, we had some other concerns about the river-safe barrels, especially that if we were going to use those in the next phase, it would make the program more costly, because the fact that they didn't have a removable lid meant that they couldn't be nested, and therefore the shipping cost from Canada was very high. So all of those things led us to decide to design our own barrel. So some of our goals for phase 2 were to improve the rain barrel design, if possible to have them manufactured locally, to increase the number of rain barrels in the watershed to 4,000, so that would mean 3,500 for phase 2, to improve the user commitment and understanding of what the whole program was all about, and to be able to demonstrate environmental impact, which basically means some form of monitoring. So things that we looked at in thinking about how to improve engagement, the quality versus quantity. Since we knew that phase 2 would be spread out over 3 years, we felt that we could take a little more time to do things right, and that part of that was that decision to separate the assessment and installation process. And we really used the assessment time. The homeowner has to be present for the assessment when we look at the property and try to determine whether there is an appropriate place to put the barrel. We have an assessment form that we fill out that has a little place to draw the outline of the house on the property and show on the drawing where the different downspouts are and where the decision is made jointly with the homeowner where the barrel is going to be placed. And we use that assessment time to do some watershed education as well. And you can usually tell when you're meeting with a homeowner for the first time how well informed they are. So, you can tell how elementary or more sophisticated your presentation can be depending how much they already know. But it's a good opportunity to talk to them about a number of different things going on in the watershed. And then also we've built regular field checks into our schedule to help ensure that we know what's going on with the barrels that are out there. We plan to use multiple approaches for outreach, everything from tabling at community events to posters to direct mail. And most important, we built into the grant request funding for an education and outreach coordinator, recognizing that this would be a critical component. This is from a citizen's guide. We, during the same period of time, received grant funding for a series of citizens' guides, and this is from the back of the Citizen's Guide to Rain Barrels. Oh, well, this is one page from it. There's another page coming up a little bit later. But anyway, the learning curve for Phase 2 began with the design of the new barrel, which of course took longer than anticipated, but we were pretty happy with the results. The barrel holds 133 gallons of water, which, as far as we know, is the largest rain barrel on the market. The size was based on a calculation of what was needed for a single downspout of an average roof in our watershed communities during an average rainfall. We probably would have liked to go a little bit larger, but anything larger than this would have made installation more difficult and definitely would have created a higher barrier to acceptance. And as it is, we definitely have some people who will not take one of our barrels because they just think that they're too large and not attractive, and they don't easily hide behind shrubbery unless your shrubbery is pretty large. So we felt this was really about as big as we could make them. The removable lid means that we needed to be sure that the barrel would never overflow around the lid, so we designed a siphon overflow system. So as soon as the water gets to the top of that pipe that's inside, then it immediately begins pumping water out, pulling from the bottom, and it pumps out the overflow tube at about 20 gallons a minute. So it's fast enough that even in the heaviest rainstorm, it will never overflow around the lid. We encourage people to keep the spigot open and draining continuously. But, of course, many of the people who are interested in having a rain barrel want to save the water for their garden during dry periods, so they keep the spigot closed. And as long as the overflow is directed to a permeable surface, it basically works the same way in terms of infiltrating water into the ground. If the overflow is put back into the drain stump, then essentially what you have is a very fat downspout. So we try not to find applications where that's what has to be done, because it's really not ideal that way, but every now and then that does end up happening. So this is the new barrel as it looked when it was being installed beginning in 2007 and through 2008. And then this, again, that doesn't look exactly, I didn't realize some of that slide was going to be cut off, so sorry about that. But the citizens guides are there are PDFs of them on our website if you're interested in looking at them. There are citizens guides to rain barrels, rain gardens, and permeable paving, and this information is there. In the most recent edition of the Citizens Guide to Rain Barrels, we ask people outside the watershed, where it says other Allegheny County residents, to just check our website for current pricing, because we did have a couple of price increases for the outside the watershed price, and we decided rather than reprinting each time, we would just direct people to the website. So the biggest unanticipated challenge during this program were the winter issues. They didn't emerge until the winter of 2008-2009. The first winter that the barrels went through, we started installing in fall of 2007, and that first winter was unusually mild. And our hope had been that these barrels could be in use year-round. We thought that they were sturdy enough, and it was just really, kind of, I think, naivete that somehow we thought that was going to work. But it did work the first winter, and so it reinforced our thinking that it would work. But the second winter, we had a real winter here in Pittsburgh, and just to go back for a minute, if you see where the spigot is, you will realize that means that there's always some water at the bottom of the barrel. So when that water at the bottom freezes, because water expands when it freezes, it would expand beyond the outlet. So that means that if you go through a series of freeze-thaw cycles, the water will keep coming into the barrel and can't escape because there's a block of ice blocking the spigot. so we actually got to a point that winter where there were a number of barrels that had ice all the way up to the top, and this shows what happened to the overflows. They separated, and so there were just a number of problems. It was quite distressing, and we discovered it through both people contacting us, and also our field checks found some barrels with problems that had not yet been reported to us. So we had to decide what to do, and our solution was first, immediately we sent a letter to all of the rain barrel owners, and because of doing the assessment, we have both street addresses and email addresses for everyone who has an email. There are a handful of rain barrel owners who actually don't have email, but almost everyone does. But we did a hard copy letter to all of the rain barrel owners explaining what had happened and saying that we were working on a plan to fix them and that we would be back in touch with everyone as soon as we had determined what the plan was going to be, because we just wanted everyone to know right away that we knew what was going on and that we were, working on the situation. But what we ended up deciding to do was to retrofit all of the existing barrels with diverters, and then all the new ones since then have been installed with diverters. And although this was a costly undertaking, we just really felt that we had no choice, because if we didn't solve this problem, it would quickly kill the program. Our best advertising is word of mouth, but the reverse is true as well. So the diverter can go back in the drain sump, or ideally it can be set up to drain to the lawn. We send emails to all the rain barrel owners with a reminder when it's time to winterize and then when it's time to reconnect, as well as advertising that in our newsletter. And also through our field checks, that's an opportunity to follow up with those people who may not have been paying attention to the reminders. About the monitoring, on this map you can see in the watershed the 4 subbasins that we selected for monitoring. These were areas where that had previously been monitored for flow in the storm sewer pipe. They're little subbasins where all of the buildings in that area all flow to one storm sewer pipe. So an intern developed a model to identify the optimal subbasins in which to undertake the monitoring. The 4 of them, the smallest one has 120 and the largest one 270 buildings. In these areas, the barrels are free, and we've made an extra effort to encourage people to take more than one. Our goal was to get to 40% of the buildings in each of these study areas being equipped with barrels. It took us until the fall of 2009 to get to that point in the first 2 areas, and we still have not reached it in the second 2. It was interesting. The description of my presentation that was on the website, when I saw that, it really just mentioned the study areas, and I thought, in retrospect, if we would have just focused on that, we probably would be where we wanted to be in that area, and if we hadn't spent as much time as we did on the rest of the watershed. But anyway, that's not what we did. And so we had a couple of very important partners helping us with the monitoring effort, the local sewer authority and a nonprofit called 3 Rivers Wet Weather, which lent us the flow monitoring equipment and helped with the installation and retrieving of the data. And we're now in the process of analyzing the data. We should be finished with that data analysis for those first 2 areas within about the next month. So within 4 to 6 weeks, we should have something up on our website. This is just a little close-up of one of those study areas. So early engineering analysis suggested that if 40% of the residences in that area had rain barrels, that we would be able to see a measurable decrease in the amount of runoff in the system. We still don't know for sure what we're going to find, but we think that the results will be useful either way. If we've made this substantial an investment of time, money, and ingenuity over a period of 3 years and we can't show a measurable difference in flow, then municipalities or other nonprofits that are considering starting a rain barrel program would want to know that. They still might want to go ahead with a rain barrel program because it's a great way to get people involved and educate them about watershed issues. We often refer to it as the gateway drug to stormwater management. But the question is, will it help a municipality that's trying to meet the requirements of a consent order? That's the critical question. So we will find out, and if you want to know the answer, check our website in about a month to a month and a half. So our biggest disappointment is how far we are from meeting our numerical goal. We are still only at 1,350 barrels, a long way from the 4,000 that we projected. We've done a fair amount of research on other programs around the country, and we think that even at this number, it's one of the largest programs in a concentrated area in the U.S., but it's far from where we want it to be. So the whole process has been much more labor-intensive than anticipated, but we really feel like that amount of interaction with the rain barrel owners is pretty critical to actually making it work. A lot of the other programs that we've looked into can tell us how many barrels they've distributed, but they actually have no idea whether they're being used or not. So we feel like if you want to know whether it's effective, you have to be willing to put the time in to gather that kind of information. Also, the original goal, what this whole program has taught us is the critical importance of market research. The numerical goal was arrived at through a scientific calculation of how many barrels it would take to achieve the amount of reduction in flow that we were looking for, but there was no market research in terms of figuring out how many people in the watershed would actually be interested in a rain barrel, whether or not the $100 price would be a barrier, what they would like a rain barrel to look like during the design process. That really wasn't taken into account, believe it or not. So, you know, there are a lot of reasons why if part of the initial grant had gone to market research, we probably would have had a different numerical goal from the very beginning. But in any case, we're going to continue. We're not giving up, and you know, even though we're beyond the initial 3-year period, we're continuing to do assessments and installations. But we also, in our new strategic plan, are taking a broader approach to stormwater management, both at the residential level, and we're also looking to get more involved with commercial and municipal properties. But even at the residential level, we've got a rain garden pilot project going on right now, and we're doing more with tree planting and also working on a program to try to save and extend the life of the mature trees, because we're fortunate in a couple of neighborhoods in our watershed to have some very large, very old, wonderful mature trees that are doing a great job of stormwater management, but they, you know, are subject to a lot of urban stresses, and we want to try to do what we can to prolong their life. So we're going to be doing some demonstrations of sidewalk alternatives rather than just replacing concrete pads that keep lifting over and over again, and enlarging tree pits and things like that. But what really keeps us motivated is seeing the success that's been achieved so far in the park. This bird was spotted on our bird walk and breakfast that took place just a few weeks ago. And actually people have seen the herons quite a few times recently on 9 Mile Run, and they wouldn't be there if there wasn't something for them to eat, so that's quite encouraging. And also we know that because of climate change, we're going to be seeing more of the kinds of intense storms that can cause a lot of damage in the stream. So it's more imperative than ever that we get some of that stormwater diverted and out of those storm sewers so that we can preserve the wonderful restoration that was done there and continue to improve water quality. That's it.
All right. Thanks very much, Brenda. So I just want to thank both of the presenters. I think because I just want to keep things close to an hour, and we started a few minutes late, we'll open the lines and maybe just take 1 or 2 questions if there are any. So, Rosie?
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please unmute your phone, press star 1, and record your name when prompted. To withdraw your question, you may press star 2. Once again, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1. One moment, please, for the first question.
And I want to let everyone know that the presentations, these slideshows, will all be put up on our website on the page for this webcast session, and we will have them corrected there. So, Brenda, sorry about the ones that ran over.
Yeah, I can fix that and get it back to you.
Yeah, and we'll get those up there correctly. Also, that everyone should feel free to send any questions that they may have that we can't answer today because of the time to me, and I'll pass them along to Brenda and Jason and get some good answers for you. So, Rosie, do we have anyone online?
Yes, we do. One moment. Our first question comes from Scott Hansen.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Okay, permitting for all these rain barrels and stuff, was there permitting issues with the cities, and how did you resolve that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, in Allegheny County, which we have a weird situation here in the Pittsburgh region, in that we have many, many small municipalities. In Allegheny County, I think there are 130-some municipalities. So that makes for lots of different codes and ordinances, but there is a plumbing code that applies to all of Allegheny County, and it, up until this month, believe it or not, has actually stated that you are required to have your downspouts connected to a storm sewer. Now, there are places where people were required to be dye tested, and if they were found to be illegally connected to a sanitary sewer, then they had to disconnect. But the code, in general, required people to be connected. So when we started the Rain Barrel Initiative, we applied for a variance to the code for our whole watershed, and we did receive that. However, people have purchased our barrels who live outside the watershed, and essentially they've been doing something illegal, and it just hasn't been enforced. However, I'm thrilled to announce that this month the health department, the county health department, finally has changed the code, and that it's no longer a requirement that the downspout be connected. So they're finally getting the idea that that because we have a huge problem in this region with combined sewer overflows, the county, the sewer authority is under a consent decree from EPA to reduce combined sewer overflows, and a big part of how we need to do that is to get some of the stormwater out of the system. So, there's finally an awareness developing that if people are willing to help do that by disconnecting their downspouts, we need to let them.
All right. Thanks very much. I think we're going to cut it off there, and anyone who has additional questions, please send them on to me at leland@actrees.org, and we'll pass them on and get some answers back to you. I want to thank everyone for participating today. These presentations and the recorded session, as well as a resource list, will be available in about 1 week, and we'll email everyone with those resources to everyone who completes this survey that you see up on the screen right now. So please take a minute. Our next webcast session is Species Selection Part 1, Nursery Selection, and that will be in 2 weeks on July 15th. Again, take a minute to fill out this survey on the screen right here. It really helps us to improve our webcast, and we appreciate your feedback. I want to say a big thanks to our presenters today, Jason Schmidt and Brenda Smith, and to everyone who participated, and thanks to the Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service for making this session possible. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.